This one is for the UFC 275, people's main event, the one that we're all excited about watching because the first one was an absolute war. I don't know how you want to call it, what you want to say. But if you're not excited for the rematch between Weili and Joanna Jędrzejczyk, then you're mad. The first one was brilliant. There's a lot to talk about with it because they're very, very closely matched. It was a very closely contested fight. Both fighters bring something to the table that the other one doesn't, and they have to kind of lean into that. That's the most important statement to start the show off. They both have to lean into the physical attributes and the things that they're more inclined to be good at. Let's quick look at the tail of the tape. So Zhang Weili, 21-3. Joanna is 16-4. Joanna's got a 2-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. Now, this has got Weili listed as a switch stance fighter and Joanna as orthodox. But watching that last fight back, you'll see there are long periods of time where Joanna's fighting out of the southpaw stance, throwing lots of left leg kicks. That might be down to the fact that Weili was working her lead leg very well, which she always does against her opponents. It might be because Joanna does favour kicking off her left leg. Even when she's orthodox, she likes to switch lead head kick. A very useful tactic given the fact that was what Rose used against Weili when she knocked her out. So lots of things that both of these fighters can do to make their life easier going into this rematch and potentially take less damage because they both got beat up. Of course, we all remember the big swelling on Joanna's head. That was from a clash of heads. I mean, of course, Weili was working on it pretty good, but then Weili was pretty beat up as well. It's not like Joanna didn't tag her with a whole bunch of good, clean shots. Joanna has a higher striking defense and a slightly higher striking output. I think that's a pretty obvious thing. The difference is that when Weili lands, it tends to hurt her opponents more. Joanna tends to wear people down. She tends to erode people over the rounds. You know, you think about the fights where she's got stoppage wins. Jessica Penne is the one that comes to mind. Broke her nose really good with an elbow, but then the finish was like a spitfire, and the referee just jumped in and saved her. She was still standing. She was just overwhelmed by the speed and the volume coming in her direction. And obviously, because her nose was already broken pretty good, there was just nothing coming back as far as intelligently defending herself. When it comes to the grappling range, of course, it all leans towards Weili. 1.75 takedowns on average per 15 minutes. Her takedown accuracy is 31%, but of course she's trying more. But then you look at Joanna's takedown defense at 81%. That's very impressive. It's a really high statistic, especially given the fact that everybody wants to take her down. Not many submissions on the side of Joanna, of course, but on the side of Weili, we've got arm bars to be concerned with, and we've got rear naked chokes earlier on in her career. She's only had one submission in the UFC. That was over Jessica Aguilar. That was a first-round arm bar. But she came into the UFC off an arm bar in the first round. And you go further back into her career, you've got a 41-second guillotine, another first-round submission, which will most likely be a choke. It's not listed here. Second-round rear naked chokes, arm bars. They're the tactics that she's going to be using if it hits the floor. But almost definitely she's not going to be chasing those things. She's going to work to get good position and work ground and pound. If you're Joanna, you need to be a disciplined kickboxer. You need to fight this one like a points competition, and you need to be in and out of range and forcing Weili to miss constantly. If you go first, you need to make sure that it's a good feint because Weili is going to come back with something more powerful. So you need to feint to get her to throw her counter so you can counter her counter. Ideally, she lets Weili go first and then she can pick her shots much better and she can start reading off the bad habits of Weili the more desperate she gets and the more she swings and misses. If range closes down and she starts playing tie clinch, then I feel like Weili's going to have that physical power to pull her onto knees and to work those reaps and trips to get the fight to the floor. But whilst closing into that range, if Joanna can start using those elbows and start smashing and doing damage, especially in the first round, do damage in the first round and it stays with the fight with your opponent throughout the fight. Now, this is 3 rounds, so it will change things. The pace is going to be slightly different. The intensity of those rounds will be slightly different as well. But the point still stands. 15 minutes is a decent chunk of time. If you can open somebody up in the first 2 minutes with an elbow, that cut is going to stay with them for the rest of the fight and could potentially bring the doctors in to get involved. So smart game plan for Joanna is to be tactical, to be technical and fast. keep a long range and be in and out and stinging, and try and allow Weili to go first, because then she can counter. If you Weili, you want to take the canvas away from Joanna as much as possible. Work her legs, whether she's southpaw or orthodox, but make sure you're not leaving your hands down, because she has been counted off low kicks in the past. And if you do close down into range, just know that those short range punches are going to favor Weili. And again, the clinch work, the ground fight, and I don't think there's a doubt that Weili wins if it goes there. Challenge is getting Joanna to the floor. She's got great takedown defense, but great takedown defense more against people shooting a double leg, traditional wrestling style, and less about people hooking and reaping and tripping, which is really where Weili's technical skills are in the clinch and on the ground. I think these two are very, very evenly matched. I think it's a very technical and tactical battle between the two of them. I just think that Joanna brings speed and range, and Weili brings horsepower, and it's a bit of a coin toss as to which one's going to work. But the fact that Weili's the more disciplined one of the two, and the fact that she's the one with the power, puts a lot more emphasis on Joanna being the one that has to stay disciplined and keep this one a technical kickboxing match. That might be the biggest challenge for Joanna, because she is a warlike individual, and that's one of the reasons why we love her fights. This one's going to be really, really fun to watch. I cannot wait for this rematch.